if ever there is a year to really pay attention to who's most improved, well, we're coming off a year where TCU is one of the most improved teams in the history of the sport and proved everybody wrong. Who do we need to keep an eye on this year, Bill?
Well, we start with a pretty obvious one who probably isn't a playoff contender by any stretch of the imagination. But if Colorado doesn't improve more than anybody else, it'll be a pretty big shock. You see it with my SP Plus projections. They are supposed to improve by more than 2 touchdowns overall. And then after that, you see kind of a list of teams that, either underachieved last year, like Miami and A&M, or still had one unit dragging them down quite a bit, like USC and North Carolina. So, that's enough to probably get, at least USC into the top 10 picture, but still room for growth overall.
How much does a new coordinator, a la Bobby Petrino with A&M, how much does that factor into the points per game improvement?
Well, it doesn't directly because everything's so zero-sum overall. Like, a new coordinator could be bad too. But in this case, just the talent level at play here, the numbers are basically saying there's no way this isn't going to get better this year. It's just a question of how much, I guess.
So when it comes to some of the transfers, is there any thought of, yes, these are great transfers coming in, but it may take time for this team to mesh? How much does that play in?
It does. I mean, the depth for Colorado, specifically with over 50 transfers, the depth is still going to be an issue for them. And they're still, with all that improvement, they were so bad last year. We're still talking about a team that ranks in the 80s right now. I think that's probably too low, but I don't think we're talking about a top 30 team by any stretch this year.
Of course, A&M and Miami fans very happy to show up on that list, and the expectations are much higher. You don't want to show up on this next list among Power 5 teams. The teams that, when you do your analysis, Bill, are set to take a step back.
Yeah, what you see here, it really is almost like which teams had the unsustainably good unit last year. Illinois' defense, Minnesota's defense, Tennessee's offense, for instance. You do see Georgia on there. Don't be too alarmed. They are still projected number 1. It's just when you win the title game by 58 points, you end up with a really high rating. And that's probably going to fall back to earth a little bit.
You see Mississippi State and obviously the passing of Coach Leach. Greg, they're going in a different direction of an offensive philosophy. I mean, the air raid for all the recent years, but things are going to be different in Starkville.
But an offense that I actually think fits better in the league. With all due respect to the air raid, it's tried and true, it works. But you can't beat teams like Georgia, like Alabama. The top-tier teams in college football, you're going to struggle if you're that one-dimensional. So I see the regression as far as numbers are concerned. Is that because the air raid's designed to manufacture points, or is that more because, hey, we're just not quite sure what Zach Arnett and Kevin Barbay, the offensive coordinator, are going to contribute?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of turnover on defense, because obviously their defensive numbers were really good last year. And then on offense, losing all those receivers and just having to bring on a bunch of new guys, bringing in tight ends, which was kind of, that's going to be a little bit of a shock. But I do think, it's just the turnover there. They're starting from scratch in a couple of the units, especially the receiving core. And, if they take a step backward and they're merely a top 30 or 40 team, that's still not bad. It's just, somebody's going to have to lose games in the SEC West, and we'll see who that ends up being.
And Sam, what is your read on the Illini?
Yeah, so I don't love the fact that we talk about regression. Yes, we saw some of the first-round picks at corner, but the defensive coaches and coordinators are still intact. And so I think they have a physical brand of football where they know how to win and there's a consistency. I think about, Aaron Henry, one of their defensive coaches, right? Like, he's still there, and I think he's part of the reason why their defense has been so excellent.
Yeah, and the defense is still projected to be really good, and their offense is still projected to be pretty poor overall. And I think basically what it comes down to is defense goes down a little bit and offense doesn't. We don't know that the offense is going to get better yet. And so it ends up being kind of a hard deal there.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.